Week 9 of the fantasy football season. Here's a few plays I look to sell and trade. This week, the first play of Calvin Ridley of the Tennessee Titans. Calvin Ridley finally had a breakout game for this Tennessee Titan team. Week 2 was the last time he had a monster game versus the New York Jets. So Week 8, a great game. He had 10 catches, 143 yards on a whopping 15 targets, a fumble loss at the Lions. And now this week, it's a good matchup, no doubt about it, versus the Patriots. But Calvin Ridley hasn't done much all season, like I said. If it's Will Levis, Mason Rudolph for quarterback, I don't think these guys are going to be valuable week in and week out, getting him the football consistently, even with DeAndre Hopkins out of town and traded to the Kansas City Chiefs. So Calvin Ridley, like I said, he had the breakout game, and we didn't see anything from him besides Week 2 to now in Week 8. So while Ridley's coming off the big game, he's a sell-high candidate. To me, the next sell-high is Ladd McConkey of the Los Angeles Chargers. I know he's the number one wide receiver over there is McConkey, and him and Justin Herbert definitely have a great rapport. And McConkey coming off a big 6 for 111 and 2-touchdown ball game versus New Orleans Saints in the Week 8 victory. Besides that game and Week 4, he hasn't done much all season long. So Week 9, a good matchup on paper at the Browns for Ladd McConkey in this offense. But McConkey, like I said, there's going to be good weeks and bad weeks for the young wide receivers. So coming off a big game with the 111 and 2 touchdowns in that one, he's definitely a sell-high candidate because I think this is the peak. He'll be at his Ladd McConkey. Took advantage of a good matchup. In the next couple weeks, it gets a little bit tougher. And now teams are going to pay more attention to McConkey, where he's pretty much the only threat in the passing game for this Charger team with J.K. Dobbins in the backfield. Next play I look to sell is Jalen Waddle of the Miami Dolphins. I don't know if Waddle has it that much with this Miami Dolphin team. Tua came back. You thought Waddle at least get double-digit fantasy points in PPR leagues, but obviously that wasn't the case. Only 4 catches, 45 yards, and 3 of those catches came in the second half of the game on 6 targets. So this offense, I don't believe will ever get back to the level where it was last season this year. With Tua, I know he's out there, but he's definitely not 100% if that crazy concussion he had early in the season in Week 2. And Jalen Waddle, the last couple seasons, the numbers have definitely dropped off a little bit. So right now, I would just put Waddle on the trade block and see if you could get a decent back or something for him in a deal, because I just believe right now, I don't think his ceiling is that high. The next play is his teammate Raheem Mostert of the Miami Dolphins. So Mostert, he hasn't played a lot this season, but last week he went out there and he found the end zone twice on 31 total yards in that ball game for Raheem Mostert. So Devon Achane, obviously the man over there for the Miami Dolphins. He had over 120 total yards in that game last week, found the end zone. If Mostert didn't get those 2 touchdowns, he pretty much had a nothing ball game. I know he had 10 touches in the game, but it's Devon Achane's backfield, in my opinion, for Miami. And so at least is look healthy over the last couple weeks, where you could sell him off. The next player, Ramondre Stevenson of the New England Patriots. So Stevenson, he had a big game versus a good defense, no doubt about it, with 48 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns, 3 catches, 17 yards, and a 2-point conversion. But now if Brissett's back in there at quarterback, teams are going to load the box, stop Stevenson, and force Brissett to try to beat him, in my opinion. So coming off a nice game with 23.5 fantasy points in PPR leagues for Ramondre Stevenson, I believe he's a sell-high candidate. And the schedule gets a little bit tougher as well. Tennessee and the Chicago Bears coming up the next 2 weeks here for Stevenson. So like I said, with all the factors, if May's out, they're going to load the box a little more, or opposing defenses. And that Tennessee and that Chicago are 2 tough ball games. Next sell high is Rachaad White of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So White in between the tackles, he's just not that great of a running back. And I've said this pretty much all season long. Bucky Irvins look like the better running back in between the tackles. But obviously Rachaad White, one of the best receiving backs in all pro football. So right now, Sean Tucker's pretty much phased out. It's a 1-2 combo in the backfield for Tampa Bay. And Rachaad White, he's had fumble troubles, and we saw it last week as well versus the Atlanta Falcons. So the last couple weeks, only good games for Rachaad White, but a tough matchup Week 10 versus San Francisco, and then going on by in Week 11. So right now, the next 2 weeks, pretty much, it's going to be down weeks, I believe, for Rachaad White, and he's a sell-high candidate this week. And the final player, I look to sell and trade Sam Laporta of the Detroit Lions. Laporta, he was the first tight end off the board in most fantasy leagues, and he really hasn't done much all season long, but finally had his best game at the gate versus Tennessee, where he had 6 catches, 48 yards, and a touchdown. So this offense is a spread-it-out type of offense for the Lions. I know Amon-Ra St. Brown, he didn't do anything last week. He had that 1 touchdown, and that was it. But it was all special teams and the running game for the Lions is why St. Brown didn't do much, but Sam Laporta almost had 2 touchdowns, one stopped at the yard line, and obviously a short touchdown thrown from David Montgomery to him. So Laporta, he hasn't been right all season long, and finally coming off a good game in Week 8 here. He's a sell-high candidate this week because, like I said, inconsistencies have been there, and if Jameson Williams comes back in Week 11, those targets are going to go down as well for Laporta. So that's a few plays I look to sell and trade for Week 9 of the fantasy football season.